Imagine a massive bulldozer pushing a car directly into a solid, unmoving brick wall.
The car has literally nowhere to go. It doesn't move an inch, but it noticeably changes shape. The metal crumples, glass shatters, the whole frame warps. Why? We usually think of physics just in terms of motion, forces making things go faster, slower, or change direction. But what happens when you apply massive force to an object that cannot move? Well, the energy doesn't just vanish. Instead, it attacks the object's very shape. We call this deformation.
So by the end of this lecture, you're going to master the physics of deformation. You'll understand the exact formulas dictating why materials stretch, bend, or compress, and you'll know exactly how to apply Hooke's law to real-world examples, everything from industrial steel cables down to the bones inside your own body.
All right, part 1, the physics of deformation and the basics of Hooke's law. First thing to realize here, every single force causes some level of deformation. It doesn't take a bulldozer. Literally, even the lightest touch subtly changes the shape of whatever you're pressing against.
But here's the cool part. For small deformations, materials are beautifully predictable. When you remove the force, the object just snaps right back to its original shape. That means the deformation is elastic. And the size of that deformation, it's perfectly proportional to the force you applied. That rule right there is Hooke's law. Think of a nylon guitar string. Pull it a little, it stretches a little. Pull it twice as hard, it stretches exactly twice as much. So let's look at the math behind this.
Let's break this down step by step. Hooke's law is written as F equals K times delta L. Step 1, F is the force you're applying. Step 2 is K. That's our proportionality constant, and it's totally unique to every object. It factors in the shape and the stuff the material is made of. So, a thick steel cable has a much larger K than a thin rubber band because it's way stiffer. And finally, step 3, delta L. That's the actual deformation, the exact change in length produced by your force.
But wait, this is important. What happens if the pulling force becomes too large? Because obviously materials don't just stretch forever. Eventually, if you apply enough stress, that nice straight proportional line on our graph ends. You hit what's called the material's tensile strength. That is the exact breaking point where the material permanently deforms or completely fractures. It's not snapping back anymore. It's done.
Now that we've got the basics, let's move into our second section, tension and compression. These are one-dimensional changes. This is where we stretch or compress a rod or wire perfectly parallel to its length. We call it tension when pulling it apart and compression when we're pushing it together.
For these one-dimensional changes, we use a specialized factor called Young's modulus to measure stiffness. Now, look at these numbers comparing organic material to industrial metals. Aluminum sits at 70, and steel is incredibly stiff at 220. But human bone, under tension, just 16. It's way lower than steel. That means, for any given force, bone is going to deform a lot more than steel would.
To really nail these calculations down, we have to formally define two absolutely crucial terms, stress and strain. Stress is just the force applied divided by the cross-sectional area. We measure that in newtons per square meter. Strain, on the other hand, is the actual ratio of the change in length compared to the original length. It doesn't even have units, it's just a percentage of change. And the magic equation tying it all together, stress equals Young's modulus multiplied by strain.
So now you might be asking, if human bones have such a low Young's modulus compared to steel, why don't our legs just completely shatter under the constant stress of our own body weight? It's a fantastic question. To answer it, let's run a quick calculation and see exactly how much your bones deform when you're just standing around. Let's use a real-world example. Imagine a 70-kilogram man standing on just one leg. His upper leg bone, the femur, is supporting about 62 kilograms of his upper body mass. That femur is roughly 40 centimeters long. If we plug his mass, the bones area, and the Young's modulus for bone into our formula, we find that his femur compresses by a microscopic 2 × 10 to the negative 5 meters. Guys, that's just 0.02 millimeters. So despite having a lower Young's modulus than steel, bones are still unbelievably rigid weight-bearing structures. They barely compress at all under normal biological forces.
Okay, let's step it up a notch to section 3, bending and shearing. We've talked about pulling and pushing in a straight line. But what happens when forces hit you from the side? This brings us to two-dimensional forces.
Shear deformation happens when you apply forces perpendicular to an object's length. Think about holding a pencil and snapping it in half. You aren't stretching it, you're pushing it sideways. This is governed by a new constant called the shear modulus, and the math here makes total sense. It proves it's way easier to bend a long, thin pencil than a short, thick one. The cross-sectional area and the original length directly dictate how much force it takes to shear the object. And this highlights something absolutely wild about the human body. For most materials, their shear modulus is actually lower than their Young's modulus, meaning they break easier from the side than from being pulled. But bone? Bone is a stunning exception. Bone's shear modulus is actually greater than its Young's modulus. In fact, it's practically as large as steel's. This brilliant evolutionary design is exactly why we can take sideways impacts during intense sports without our bones just snapping on the spot. Let's connect this to real life with another very common question. If our bones are so tough against shear forces, why do pregnant women, or really anyone carrying a lot of weight in their abdomen, suffer so frequently from severe lower back strain? The answer is entirely found in the physics of shear deformation. You see, the spine is basically a column of discs designed for vertical compression. But when you carry a lot of weight up front, you naturally shift your shoulders backward just to keep your balance. That seemingly minor adjustment drastically increases the curvature of your spine. Since the spine is no longer completely vertical, the weight of your upper body creates a massive shear component, a sideways sliding force, directly on the lower vertebrae. The wedge-shaped disc at the very bottom of your spine is suddenly fighting intense lateral forces it wasn't really meant for, which puts it at a super high risk for strain or even rupture.
All right, so we've stretched things, we've bent things sideways. Let's move to our final dimension in section 4, compressing volume. This is all about three-dimensional changes. What happens when inward forces are applied perfectly evenly across all surfaces of an object? This is governed by what we call the bulk modulus.
Let's visualize this with a simple, real-life analogy. Picture a wine bottle. If the bottle is half empty, the top half is filled with air, a gas. Gases have tons of empty space between their molecules, so when you push a cork in, you easily compress that air into a smaller space. But what if you fill that bottle to the absolute brim with liquid, leaving zero air? You literally cannot push the cork in. The atoms in liquids and solids are already packed in so tight, the strong electromagnetic forces between them severely oppose being pushed any closer together. To prove just how unbelievably stubborn liquids are against compression, let's look at the deep ocean. At a depth of 5 kilometers, the sheer weight of the water above creates a crushing inward force. We're talking 5.00 times 10 to the 7th power newtons per square meter. That is roughly 500 atmospheres of pressure pressing in from every direction. Yet, despite being crushed by 500 atmospheres, which is basically 1,000,000 pounds per square foot, the actual volume of that deep ocean seawater decreases by a tiny 2.3%. That is how extraordinarily difficult it is to compress a liquid. On the flip side, though, this tightly packed nature is highly destructive when liquids expand. When water freezes into ice, it needs more volume. Because liquids and solids generate immense outward force if they're trapped, freezing water can easily split solid stone boulders or even completely crack a thick metal car engine block. All right, before we wrap up today's explainer, let's jump into our final section, summary and the elasticity of life. Let's quickly review the core physics scaffolding we built today. Here are your key takeaways. Number 1, literally any applied force causes deformation. For small forces, Hooke's law dictates that the deformation is elastic and proportional to the force. Number 2, for one-dimensional tension and compression, we measure stiffness with Young's modulus. Number 3, for two-dimensional bending and sideways forces, we use the shear modulus. And finally, number 4, for three-dimensional all-around volume compression, we calculate that using the bulk modulus. So why does mastering all of this actually matter? Because elasticity isn't just about designing steel cables and suspension bridges. It's about the very machinery keeping you alive right now. Your arteries stretch to let blood pump, your lungs expand elastically with every single breath, and your skin snaps back into place when pulled. But, as our physics texts point out, gradual physiological aging, driven by a reduction in this exact elasticity, actually starts in your early 20s. Your body's physical Young's modulus literally changes over time. Understanding the physics of stress and strain is quite literally understanding the physics of your own biology. If you found this lecture helpful, make sure to check out our next explainer where we take these exact principles and apply them to uniform circular motion and gravitation. Keep questioning, keep calculating, and I'll catch you